الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we continue with the book of Tadhim Al-Ilm, exalting the ilm or the knowledge. And again, we had finished briefly, not in every single detail, every single word, the book of Tadhkirat As-Sami' wal-Mutakallim by Ibn Jama'a rahimahullah. And we're going through these 20 ma'aqid, or the 20 points that Sheikh Al-Usaymi hafidhahullah mentioned in his book Tadhim Al-Ilm, and that's also required inshallah. And in the morning briefly we talked about some of the benefits from the book of Hilyat Talib Al-Ilm by Sheikh Bakr Abu Zayd rahimahullah, and it's all the three books in the same subject of the manners of the ilm and the virtue and the etiquettes and the manners to be observed. And inshallah ta'ala we'll have the test on Saturday, and that will be provided the details of it inshallah. And then inshallah ta'ala Monday morning we'll start with the other schedule as it's mentioned inshallah. So we are in the third point out of 20 points after what's mentioned about Tathhir Wi'a al-Ilm, purifying the container of the knowledge, which is the heart, and Ikhlas al-Niyya. The second one was about the sincerity of intentions, and the third one was to get all of one's himma, one's zeal, one's focus to be upon the ilm. And again, it's important to go through all of what is mentioned, because what's mentioned is something that a person doesn't know unless he get to know it. The subject of the virtue of the ilm and the etiquettes and the status of the ilm, it's not known by most of the Muslims, except for those who would study what does that mean. So al-ilm is an act of ibadah. It's the most valuable thing for a person to seek, and that's why it has to be done with sincerity and following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. And the last thing last night or this morning we talked about was the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a way of life. احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. To be or to have the hirs, the greed, to seek what is benefiting for you and to seek help from Allah, and not to have ajz, not to have any inability to do things, but rather seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take the means to do it, and one of which is in matters of ilm. And this is the last thing that we said. And then the next point within this third point, he mentioned what would help you to raise your himma, your zeal, and elevate your nafs to seek what's the most valuable thing ever, which is the ilm. He says, one of which is اعتبار حال من سبق, to take the ibrah, to take the lesson of those who came before us. وتعرف همم القوم الماضين, to get to know the himmam, the zeal and the determination of those who were before us. So this is one of the important way to increase our zeal and determination, is to be more attached to the early generations of Islam, which is basically how we study the ilm. So to get to know some of their affairs when it comes to studying the ilm, and what the things that they valued in their time, so that we revive the same thing. So he mentioned as an example that Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah كان وهو في الصبا, when he was young, ربما أراد الخروج قبل الفجر إلى حلق الشيوخ. He would sometimes want to go to the circles of knowledge before Fajr when he was young. And this is how they used to the entire day, even before Fajr, to go, so that it starts from Fajr the whole day with the hilaq or the circles of knowledge. فَتَأْخُذُ أُمُّهُ بِثِيَابِهِ, so his mother will take him by his clothing, and she would say رحمة به, and she would say out of mercy towards him, حتى يؤذن الناس ويصبحوا, wait till the adhan is made or till the morning comes. So the zeal when he was young to go seek the knowledge of the deen of Allah, when something like that you hear, it kinds of increase that determination in one's heart. Also he mentioned that in Sahih Imam Bukhari, the Al-Khatib, he recited or he read it, all of it on Ismail Al-Hiri fi thalathati majalis, in 3 majalis only, 3 gatherings only. 2 of them in 2 nights, from the time of Salatul Maghrib till Salatul Fajr. On the third day, from the beginning of the day till Salatul Maghrib, and from the Maghrib till Fajr. In 3 days, going through Sahih Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah. And these are examples. This is how their determination and the barakah, of course, and the blessings of the time with applying the ikhlas and the concern. And this is at a time when there was abundance of ulama and abundance of students of knowledge. So imagine when there is less, it's even more important for the people to revive the deen by doing so, by studying the deen in such a diligent way. And he mentioned also that Al-Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, he said in the book Tarikh al-Islam, and he says, وَهَذَا شَيْءٌ لَا أَعْلَمُ أَحَدًا فِي زَمَانِنَا يَسْتَطِيعُ. At his time, he said, this is something that I don't see anyone in our lifetime is able to do so. So then he says, may Allah have mercy upon him. If he see the himmah, the zeal of the people of our time, what would he then say? And some of them, like Abu Muhammad ibn Tabban, in the beginning when he would study the entire night, and his mother would have mercy towards him, and she would forbid him from reading the entire night, and he would take the lamp, and he would take it, under some of the utensils, and he would pretend to be sleeping, so that when she sleeps, he will continue to read. And you see the resemblance of that nowadays with the phones, maybe, or something like that, with the youth. Sometimes they do. They were upon matters of ilm. And he mentioned some of these examples. So the point here is just to take that benefit is to read in the books before, like Sayar Alam al-Nubala and the like of this, where they would talk about the ulama of this ummah and how they sought the ilm and how they were steadfast upon it. The fourth point, so the third one was to increase the himmah. So you have the concern once you feel yourself like you're down or you're bored or you don't find the zeal anymore, because all kinds of things around us takes us down with these types of things. The dunya, the materialistic things, the friends, the companions. This is such an important thing because you don't find someone to help you to increase your zeal and determination. So that's why if you don't find such companions in such a way, and that's another thing, we need to increase that with one another, then go back to the real companionship among the early generations of Islam and get to read about how their affairs, and especially with matters of ilm. The fourth point is to make that himmah and that determination and the focus towards the ilm, the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Because this is a principle. Every benefiting knowledge, it is returned back to the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, and the kalam of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is the knowledge. And anything else, it's supposed to serve this. So it take you to understand the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or it's something that if you're ignorant about it, it doesn't harm you. Anything that does not serve the understanding and the knowledge, referring back to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, it's of no benefit. So that's why if you study the Arabic language, it's for the purpose to understand and to study the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the foundation. If people study, for example, the sciences of the Hadith, because that serves the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, ulum al-Quran, the sciences of the Quran, and the ulum of al-Lugha, with language, we need to bring ourselves to how the language was, and it's still preserved the way it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the strength of it, so that we would be able to comprehend more and more the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he mentioned the ayah in Surah Az-Zukhruf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet ﷺ by saying, فَاسْتَمْسِكْ بِالَّذِي أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Hold fast to what has been revealed to you. Indeed, you are on the straight path. And the question is, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal to the Prophet ﷺ anything other than the Quran and the Sunnah? The answer is no. So that means hold fast to the wahy. فَاسْتَمْسِكْ بِالَّذِي أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ, which is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the two wahy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. And whoever, and why this is important, as he says, whoever makes the ilm of the Quran, the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, is his ilm, is his knowledge, he will follow and he would not innovate in the deen. كان متبعا غير مبتدع. He would follow and he would not innovate in the deen. And this morning we talked about التلقي عن المبتدع. Learning from a مبتدع. المبتدع is أبا جهل, is Abu Jahl. You run away from Abu Jahl, right? You run away from the ignorant one. Because even if someone is upon bid'ah, upon innovation in the deen, even if he is someone that has so much knowledge as far as the information is concerned, PhDs in Sharia, it doesn't matter. If he's a person of bid'ah, that means he has no ilm whatsoever. Because if he has the ilm is what? Al-Quran was Sunnah. The wahy. That means he follow the wahy. Not that he invent something from his own self. That means he's not upon ilm, and the ilm did not benefit him whatsoever. So this is a very important point. Whoever his ilm is the Quran and the Sunnah, he is a follower, and he's not someone that makes bid'ah in the deen, and he would attain the best of the ilm. As Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he said, من أراد العلم فليثور القرآن فإن فيه علم الأولين والآخرين. Whoever wants the knowledge, فليثور القرآن. يثور, that means you keep on expanding, you dig, you bring the treasures of the Quran. Basically, you study the Quran deeper and deeper, because it has the knowledge of the first and the last. And you cannot study the Quran unless you study all the ulum of the deen that the ulama would teach. That's why those who have lack of knowledge, they'd say, why would you teach from books like this and not to teach directly to the Quran and the Sunnah, ayat of the Quran, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's sufficient for us. How can a person understand the Quran and the Sunnah unless they have to have the tools and the means to understand them? So the matters of knowledge and the way to take the path of knowledge, it's all to serve this purpose. And those who start by just reading the Quran and the Sunnah from their own self without having the basic knowledge of it and how to understand it, they would harm themselves more than anything else. And that's why when the masses are reminded, the normal Muslim, when they're reminded of a verse of the Quran or the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they are reminded of that by the alim, by the person of knowledge, the one that put the effort and the time to learn the Quran and the Sunnah in the proper way. So he would give them what to act and how to understand and how to implement the Quran and the Sunnah. And the people might think, oh, that's easy, so let me do the same thing. No, it's not the case. It requires for the person to seek the knowledge so that he would be able to understand and implement. Otherwise, following the ulama by saying, this verse, the ulama said, act upon it like this. Then this is a different situation. And he mentioned some of the details in this. We're not going in every word that is mentioned. And as, again, the highest level of matters of ilm, which is the goal and the objective, of course, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said in his book Al-Fawaid, طلب علم الكتاب والسنة والفهم عن الله ورسوله نفس المراد وعلم حدود المنزل. The seeking the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah, and to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam the same way they want us to understand and implement, not your own understanding. To understand the deen according to what Allah wants from you, not according to what you want from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and to learn the hudud or the limits of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. So this was the ilm of as-salaf, the early generations of Islam. And then so much, as he says, ثُمَّ كَثُرَ الْكَلَامُ بَعْدَهُم. Kalam becomes so much after them in many things that is not benefiting. So the ilm, the knowledge with the salaf was much more, and al-kalam, which is not necessarily knowledge, just lots of talk and writings and things like this, which is not really benefiting, came after them. As he ends this point by saying, Hamad ibn Zayd, he said, I said to Ayub al-Sikhtiyani, one of the narrators of the hadith of Imam al-Bukhari, he said, Al-ilmu al-yawma aktharu aw fima taqaddam. Knowledge is now more or how it was before. So he said to him, Al-kalamu al-yawma akthar wal-ilmu fima taqaddama akthar. Now al-kalam, talking, is more. But al-ilm, knowledge, was then akthar, was more before. So differentiating between nonsense or things that have no benefit versus the real ilm that would affect the hearts and actions, which is the ilm of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this point here again is to understand that this is the objective, is to learn the Quran and the Sunnah. But there is the ulum that serves, as they call it, ulum khadimah, serves the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or they call it Ulumul Alat, which is basically, it's a must for, or the tools, which is a must for a person to understand the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is with regards to that point, and that is to focus and to have this present in the heart, that all of what we learn is for the purpose of learning the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and to make the ta'zim of the ilm, to exalt the ilm, so that we're not naive to say, well, where is that in the Quran and the Sunnah, just to rush into understanding the Quran and the Sunnah without having the patience to learn the ulum, or the matters and the sciences that would get us to that level. And to leave the matter to the ulama, those who spend the years and years in studying, in which we take the ahkam and the rulings from them, and when they mention what's in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we understand that this came after a long journey of understanding the way to understand the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The fifth point, he said, Sulukul jaddati musilati ilay. So now he mentioned that to take the jadda is the seriousness, that not just the seriousness, but the right path, the right way to attain this objective. And the ulama, when they talk about al-jadda, meaning jadda to ahl al-ilm, any people of knowledge in any science or any area, they already set the way and the road for people if they want to study and they get a license or whatever there is. As we mentioned that many times before, worldly sciences is very obvious like this. So you go to study medicine or engineering, and so you don't suggest to the school or to the teachers what you want to study. You submit yourself. And you might, as a result of not having the knowledge, first you say, why am I studying this? What does that has to do with anything with what I'm seeking, or the license that I'm seeking? And you see yourself after 10 years, you're in that profession or that specialty, whatever there is, you don't see where is that going, how to connect both together. No one asks these types of questions. Everybody would follow so that they would take at the end the license that they're seeking. So, jaddatu al-ilm, that means seek the knowledge, the way, the tariqah, the way of the people of the knowledge. Don't seek knowledge based on your own ways, which is one of the miseries that we're living today and witnessing. Everyone, many people, they just, since a person is a Muslim, so you think, well, that's my religion, so I need to learn my religion. So whatever is the way of learning the deen, I'm just going to follow that. And it's no owner of the subject. So everybody claims that they are learning in their own ways. And the question is it upon the jadda, upon the way of the people of knowledge or not? The way of the people of knowledge is well known from the time of the early generations of Islam, and that's what a person needs to seek. And that's why whoever turns away from it, he won't reach what his objective is, and to really, again, to attain the ilm, which goes into the heart, which is the fear of Allah, to act and to be upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And that's why, as he mentioned here, a statement by Az-Zarnuji, when he said in his book Ta'lim al-Muta'allim, he said, وَكُلُّ مَنْ أَخْطَأَ الطَّرِيقَ ضَلَّ وَلَا يَنَالُ الْمَقْصُودَ قَلَّ أَوْجَلَ. Everyone that made a mistake in the tariq, in the path, ضل, he will be deviated. It's only one path. So if you take the wrong route, you will be deviated. You won't reach the maqsood, or the objective, whether it's less or major. So we need to be guided to know the path of that we take, and we need to be firm and to continuously being guided till we reach the final destination. So, and it's not just the path. Al-jahlu, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, al-jahlu bil-tariq, being ignorant about the path to take, وَآفَاتِهَا, and the obstacles that you're going to face. Right? So you are told that this is the obstacles that you're going to face in this path, والمقصود, and the objectives, and where you're going to reach. And that وَيُوجِبُ التَّعَبَ الْكَثِيرِ, and you might get so much tired with, if you don't do this, you'll be tired so much without great benefits. Why? Because you didn't take the advice and the way of the people of knowledge in studying and following the deen. So be patient, basically, with what the ulama the people of knowledge would make for you the path to take with matters of seeking knowledge. And one of the Alfiyat Sanadi said, فَمَا حَوَى الْغَايَةَ فِي أَلْفِ سَنَةٍ شَخْصٌ فَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَنٍ أَحْسَنَ. No one, الغاية, no one, فما حوى الغاية في ألف سنة شخص فخذ من كل فن أحسنه. No one attained the objective even in 1,000 years. 1,000 years is not enough to study the ilm if you don't have the means and the guidance to do it. So take from every fan, from every science, the best of it. And that's the way of the ulama. If it's left to oneself, he will go back and forth without benefiting. And that's why to listen to the ulama بحفظ متن جامع للراجح تأخذه على مفيد ناصح. To study a book, a summarized one or so from the people of knowledge so that you can reach your destination in peace. And two things to make the person follow the ways of the people of knowledge, and whoever takes them, he will be mu'azziman lil-ilm, he will exalt the ilm because he's seeking it from where he can reach. The first one, حفظ متن جامع للراجح. You have to memorize a matn, or again, as we said, the matn is a precise, the entry book in whatever fan, whatever science that you're studying, that the ulama would write, that would make you upon what just one opinion, one way, so that you would memorize it, and you have to memorize it. And whoever can think that he can attain ilm without memorizing, he's wrong. So this is, you have to memorize that first. And this is again the next level, right? When we study that in the Arabic language, and in every subject there is something or a matn that is mu'tamad, the people of knowledge, they basically as if they stamped, this is the matn to be studied in this madhab, and it's well known and it's well recognized when it comes to the opinion in that madhab or that way or so. The second thing is to study that matn or to study that book على مفيد الناصح, from someone that is benefiting, someone that would have the concern towards you, someone that has the knowledge with all the different etiquettes and manners that we heard before, someone that mastered that book, he knows it very well, word by word, the way it's recited, what every word means, and the dabt of it, that to recite it right, to understand it, to have the perception, the right perception of it. So that's why he mentioned two qualities of the person, mufid and nasih. Mufid, benefiting, that means he befits the knowledge that he would teach. Someone that is known to be among the people of knowledge, and he took the path of seeking knowledge, and he developed the level where the knowledge becomes his norm, right? In any profession, you have this. If you're first studying something, it's difficult for you, you're struggling with it, but you reach a level that it becomes your norm, something that within your own self. So these are the levels that when a person reaches, he can teach it to others. So the same thing with matters of ilm. And the second thing is that to have the nasiha, that means he has the concern towards the students, he have the righteousness, he's applying what he studies. And the Sheikh always mentioned this hadith, which shows that the matter has to be physically present. That means people have to learn physically from one another, which we mentioned that many times before in the past few days, where you have to take the knowledge the way it came to us from one generation to the other, to the best of one's ability. So the effect of the words when it comes from someone present in front of you, this is how the wahy entered the hearts. The Quran is the speech of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke the Quran to Jibreel alayhi salam. Jibreel alayhi salam recited the Quran to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam recited the Quran to the Sahaba, and this is how they get affected by it. And they took it to the ones after them, and so on. And the hadith, tasma'un, you are listening from me, وَيُسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ, and people would listen from you, وَيُسْمَعُ مِمَّنْ يَسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ, and those who listen from you, others would listen from them. And you see how the sequence of the hadith, it shows that this is a continuous thing. The Prophet ﷺ did not only make it as if it's 3 generations only. Why would that be repeated? To show that it's a continuous thing, right? When someone wants to say something that keeps on going, how would you explain that? You would say, you give this thing to that person. There's a circle, for example, right? 100 people, and you want to pass on something from one person to the other till it comes back to you. You won't mention the 100 people by name. You won't say you give it to that person and that person give it to that person, that person. You become boring when you say it like this. But if you say it 3 times, which people understand that it keeps on going, that's what the hadith is saying. Right? So you are listening, you're hearing from what I say, and people would hear from what you're saying, so that refers to the tabi'een, and then those who heard from you, others will hear from them. And then it keeps going like this. So that has to be applied. And that's the way of the people of knowledge, in which the knowledge is a lineage, then we have to take it this way. And the second one, which is an-nasih. Then the sixth one, again, this is briefly, رعاية فنونه في الأخذ وتقديم الأهم فالمهم. To know exactly what you're going to study when you're studying, which comes first, and what to study now and what to study later, and things like this. And this is, as always, you leave that to the people of knowledge and not to your desire, what you like. And that's how a person would perfect the ilm. When someone is doing something that it all fits together, if he takes only one part of it, that's not benefiting. And he's given an example of how the ilm is. When you look at a beautiful picture or an image, it looks beautiful when you see all the parts of it. And you would lose that beauty when you see if some of the parts of the picture is hidden from the one that is seeing it. And this is the way the ilm is. Whoever takes the ilm in the proper way, he will basically complete what needs to be completed. And he will be able to understand the knowledge in the proper way. And many people, they might take parts of the ilm here or there. They will get something, but they're not upon al-ilm in the proper way. And that's why, as he quotes some of the Mashaykh, Muhammad al-Mani rahimahullah, when he said, وَلَا ينبغي للفاضل أن يترك علما من العلوم النافعة التي تعين على فهم الكتاب والسنة. And no one should leave any of the ulum, any of the sciences, benefiting ones, that helps the person to understand the Quran and the Sunnah. Even if he sees himself that he has more zeal or more power to learn something, and if he is someone of knowledge, he should not put down the part of ilm that he has no knowledge of, which is, again, someone, for example, is well versed in fiqh, for example, and he would look down upon the ulama of the hadith. Why? Because he doesn't have the knowledge of the hadith, for example, versus someone that is well versed in ilm al-hadith, and he would look down at the people of fiqh and things like this. The one that is wise, he should speak with knowledge, and he should be silent with also knowledge, and he should attain all the different aspects of ilm. But after having the foundations, then he can be specialized in one thing or the other. So to establish this is by تقديم الأهم فالمهم, to do what is more important first, and then what comes after that. And that also requires, as mentioned before, the ways of the people of knowledge. As he says, سئل مالك بن أنس, Malik rahimahullah, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, when someone asked him about طلب العلم, or seeking knowledge. So he said, حسن جميل, this is a beautiful thing, this is good. ولكن انظر الذي يلزمك من حين تصبح إلى حين تمسي فالزمه. But see first what is mandatory upon you from the moment that you wake up till you sleep at night, and فالزمه, be upon that. That means starts with the obligations first. So don't seek knowledge with something that is not an obligatory thing upon you first. So why? Because if you get yourself busy with something less important for you, that would harm what's important for you. Right? So this is a statement by Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn Muthanna, من شغل نفسه بغير المهم أضر بالمهم. And this is a rule that never fails in everything in our life. If there is something very important that you need to take care of, and instead you're busy with something less important, what happens? You will harm that one thing that is important for you. So the knowledge of what's more important than others in general, and specifically for you as a person, this is part of the ilm. And then the person would be patient in seeking the knowledge and then going from one stage to the other. And when people turn away from the variety of matters of ilm, and they would belittle some of the matters of ilm, like even some of people, they would belittle the subject of aqidah wal-'iyadhu billah, or belittling the subject of lugha, or the language. They say it's not important. The books of knowledge now are translated. We don't need to learn the Arabic language, for example. This is something that a person would always depend on others when it comes to understanding, and he would never, ever be a person of knowledge. Never. It does not work that way. This is not the way of the ulama. And if someone just have the minimum requirements, it gets him to a good level, but it doesn't take him to the high levels of ilm unless he has the foundation of the ilm, which is the medium or the language of the ilm, which is the Arabic language. The seventh point, briefly, is to don't wait. المبادرة إلى تحصيله. If you have the opportunity to study, don't delay, don't wait, which is always the case with any good deed or any ibadah that you have the opportunity to seek or to be upon. If you wait, that's a bad sign. And if you wait while you have the ability to do it, maybe you will be prevented later as a punishment. So, as he says, فَإِنَّ الْعُمُرْ زَهْرَةٌ. This life that we're in is like a plant or a flower or so. إِمَّا أَن تَصِيرَ بِسُلُوكِ الْمَعَالِي ثَمَرًا. Either it becomes a fruit or it will die. So our life is like this. Either you would have a fruit of your life, or it will be like the plant that is not taken care of. It will die and without any fruits that comes from it. So that's why be in haste when it comes to seeking knowledge. Stay away from being lazy, al-'ajz wal-kasal, and to have this inability. Take advantage of the time when you're young, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, compete, race to what is good. And when you race, you want to be the first. You don't want to be the last. This is the intention when someone be in a race, especially that when you are in a race, you know that you have equal opportunity with everyone else to be the first. Unlike the physical race, you're not fast enough. What can you do? But when it comes to something of deen, everybody has the equal opportunity to be the first. But with ilm, of course, if a person lacks the ability to understand, for example, just not a normal thing, or like the ability to memorize as a deficiency in him, not the norm that a person gets used to. We don't know ourselves till we get ourselves into the path of what we need to seek. You don't know if you're someone that would fit in ilm or not till you get yourself immersed in it. So don't assume that I don't fit. Why? Because we did not train ourselves, for example, to memorize. So how would a person know that he know how to memorize or not? And it might be difficult in the beginning. It might take years, but so what? Be patient with that. And it's always a good deed for a person to do so. And the ulama, and that's also when someone lives longer and he would give advice to those who are young, they would always say to them, take advantage of the time when you're young. And as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and you mentioned this quote before, he said, ما شبهت الشباب إلا بشيء كان في كمي فسقط. He said, I did not give the example of a shabab, the youth here, except like something that was in my sleeve and it fell very fast. It's finished. And the knowledge in when a person is young is more established, and it stays, and it doesn't go away easy. As it's the famous statement that becomes a parable that is used, and it's from Al-Hasan al-Basri, Al-Ilm fi al-Sighar kan-naqsh fi al-hajar. Learning when you're young is like carving the rock. It doesn't go away. It stays. So the same thing when a person learns when he's young. And if a person is not young anymore, still he should study and seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says the most harmful thing for the young ones, for the shabab, التسويف وطول الأمل. التسويف is when you say سوف, I will later. After I finish my studies, after I finish my this or that, and he keeps on having this طول الأمل or long hope that he would do it later. فسوف أو فيسوف أحدهم ويركب بحر الأماني. So some of them will say I will, and he rides the ocean of wishful thinking. And ويشتغل بأحلام اليقظة, and he's always dreaming while he's not asleep. Then he would speak to himself and say to himself that inshallah in the future I will have the ability to free myself from all these things that makes me busy, and all of these barriers and obstacles will go away and I will be able to study. And it's all wishful thinking, and it never works that way. والحال المنظورة, and the reality of things is أن من كبرت سنه كثرت شواغله. The more you live, the more busy you get. It's not the opposite, right? And وعظمت قواطعه, and the barriers becomes bigger. Like the tree when it's young, the more you wait for it, the more it becomes rooted. مع ضعف الجسم ووهن القوة, and the body gets weak and your strength becomes weak. So, and as he says, وَلَن تُدْرَكَ الْغَايَاتِ الْعُظْمَى بِالتَّلَهُّفِ وَالتَّرَجِّ وَالتَّمَنِّ. The high levels of objectives and zeal does not get attained by being in haste or by wishfully thinking and things like this. You have to take the steps and the means so that you can reach your destination. And he says the last point of this is, don't think as this in this point that Al-Kabir or the old one doesn't learn. So don't think that way. No, still, if someone is old in age, you still can learn. And the evidence of that is Ashabu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, many of them, they learned when they're old in age. As Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he mentioned Kitab al-Ilm in الصحيح, وإنما يعصر التعلم في الكبر كما بينه الماوردي في أدب الدنيا والدين لكثرة الشواغل وغلبة القواطع. That it's the norm is when a person is old, he's more busy. But many of the companions radiallahu anhum, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was close in age to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, over 40 years old, then they start learning the deen. So there's always a chance, if someone is given the chance to learn, don't take the excuse that you're old in age or something like this, but take advantage of being young. And be warned of these things of sawfa, I will, or things of that nature. Number 8, لزوم التأني في طلبه وترك العجلة. Which is an important one. Don't be in haste. Take your time. Don't say, oh, it's 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. Don't look at it like this. As long as you are doing something on a daily basis and it's based on what the people of knowledge are saying, then don't worry about time. Life is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one thing that you can have long hope in is ilm. Long hope is not a good thing. Say, I'm going to do this tomorrow, after tomorrow, next year. No one knows who's going to live till when. Except for ilm, you can plan for it. Plan for ilm and it's okay. And if death comes before a person finishes the years that, and there's no finish, there's no end to ilm, the intentions goes beyond one's actions. So this is true with everything else. So never limited or never be in haste in this matter. As mentioned before, العلم من رام العلم جملة ذهب عنه جملة. Whoever seeks the knowledge, all of it will go away from him, because the ilm has to be taken with the slow-paced, meaning that you do it according to the way of the people of knowledge. And the ilm has heaviness to it, as he says, كثقل الحجر في يد حامله. It's like a heavy stone when you carry it. إن سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we will bring down onto you قولا ثقيلا, heavy speech. Even though the Quran is easy, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. So you can imagine other than this matter when it comes to knowledge. So it requires for the person to be patient. And as long again as he's following the path that has been given to him, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless it for him. And he mentioned how the Quran was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not all at once, but munajjaman throughout the 23 years. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً. These believers, they said, why the Quran is not revealed to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam all at once? كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. This is how to give you firmness in your heart. وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا, meaning the Quran, how it was revealed, verses, few verses after few verses, which is an evidence, as the ulama they say, to be patient when it comes to seeking knowledge and to take levels in this, and not to be in haste. As many from Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi and others, they mention this. And شعبة بن الحجاج he said اختلفت إلى عمرو بن دينار 500 مرة. He went to عمرو بن دينار 500 times. وما سمعت منه إلا 100 حديث. I only heard from him 100 حديث. في كل 5 مجالس حديث. In every 5 sessions, one hadith he would hear from him. فقال حماد بن أبي سليمان لتلميذ له, he said to a student to him, تعلم كل يوم 3 مسائل. Learn every day 3 مسائل ولا تزد علي شيئا. This is his advice to his student, and the student should listen to this, and this can be different from one time to the other. So to be patient, again, as we heard. That's why to start with what's be summarized and short, and to be patient with that till you go to the mutawalat and the big volumes of ilm. And this point has been mentioned before. Don't rush into the big volumes of knowledge, and whoever does this initially, he says فقد يجني على ديني, he would harm his religion. وتجاوز الاعتدال في العلم ربما أدى إلى تضييعه, he might ruin himself as a result of this. And one of the quotes that he mentions, طعام الكبار سم الصغار. طعام الكبار, the food of the older ones, is poison to the young ones. Right? So that's why you might eat a child just born. If you give him solid food, you might kill that child. So not every ta'am is good for everybody. So that's why when you're being patient and taking the matter in a gradual way, according to the advices and the ways of the people of knowledge, so that you don't ruin yourself. So this is the 8th one. Then one last one is الصبر في العلم تحملا وأداء. To be patient while seeking knowledge, تحملا وأداء, learning and also conveying. Every major thing, as a rule, can never be, or any important things in this life can never be attained except with sabr. Anything, worldly matters, religious matters. So a person has to be patient with what he's doing, and patience meaning that you would see and you would feel what you dislike, and you will continue to be patient and take the means of being patient till you keep on going and seeking knowledge. And he says, وَأَعْظَمُ شَيْءٍ تَتَحَمَّلُ بِهِ النَّفْسُ طَلَبُ الْمَعَالِي. One of the greatest things for the nafs, for one's being, to carry to carry oneself to reach the highest levels of things, تَصْبِيرُهَا عَلَيْهِ, to make yourself patient till you reach what you're seeking. Right? So, and to make others patient too, as we know in the surah, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They need to advise one another to be patient. That's why many people, they start and they get excited, and then after days even, or after weeks, they quit. Why? Because the lack of patience. Be patient. There's no immediate reward that you would get. When it comes to the seeking knowledge, it's not that you're going to be motivated every day. It's not motivating speeches. It's not the speeches that you would say, MashaAllah, it's so exciting. No, you have to be patient with seeking knowledge and do it on a daily basis till the end, inshallah ta'ala. And that's why the ayah, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اصْبِرُوا وَصَابِرُوا. We who believe, be patient. وَصَابِرُوا. That means you be patient with those who are having patience, so your patience defeat them. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. Make yourself patient with those who invoke Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the morning and in the evening, and it's sufficient virtue that you are in the majalis of al-ilm. Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, in the tafsir of this ayah, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet to be patient with the people of as-Suffah and the companions, and not to extend his eyes to others. He said in the tafsir of the ayah, this is majalis al-fiqh. This is the majalis of the fiqh and the ilm. وَلَنْ يُحَصِّلَ أَحَدٌ الْعِلْمَ إِلَّا بِالصَّبْرِ. No one will attain al-ilm except with patience. And the statement that got repeated all the time by also Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, one of the narrated in Sahih Muslim in the Muqaddimah, لا يستطاع العلم براحات الجسم. The knowledge can never be attained with raha, with relaxing one's body. You have to put yourself into the being tired and to be patient and to struggle oneself. This is how to cure yourself from ignorance. If a person wants to be satisfied with being jahil, that's fine. But to take yourself out of the level of ignorance, that requires lots of patience. And that's why the statement that also was mentioned before by Al-Asma'i, من لم يحتمل ذل التعليم ساعة بقي في ذل الجهل أبدا. Whoever is not able to sustain the humbleness or the humility of the learning, which is difficult, for 1 hour, he would stay in the humility of ignorance forever. And this is how, with the sabr and sabr, like this, till the person reaches ladhatul ilm, the sweetness of al-ilm, that it becomes his norm. He doesn't want to do anything else but to continue to learn. And that's why, as some of the Salaf, they said, من لم يحتمل ألم التعليم لم يذق لذة العلم. Whoever does not bear the pain of learning, he is not going to taste the sweetness of the knowledge. And that's why ولا بد دون الشهد من سم لسعة. The honey comes with the bees when it bites and things like this. So many different words of wisdom as a result of that. So the sabr, when it comes to the ilm, is 2 types. صبر في تحمله وأخذه, to be patient in gaining the knowledge, in attaining the knowledge. Memorization requires sabr. Al-fahm requires sabr. For you to memorize, you have to be patient, right? You have to keep on memorizing. That's not a pleasant thing for someone in the beginning. The same thing with understanding, something that you didn't get. We're talking here about just the virtues of ilm and things like this, but once we get to matters of ilm and also later, something that you didn't understand, it requires for you to be patient. So be patient. وحضور مجالس العلم يحتاج إلى صبر. And to come to the majalis of the ilm physically, that requires sabr. Or to attend the majalis in general, that requires sabr. You find all kinds of distractions, so you force yourself to come. ورعاية حق الشيخ تحتاج إلى صبر. And to observe the rights of the sheikh and the teacher and so on, that also requires patience. So you have to prepare yourself. You have to put that upon yourself and to seek rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to the sabr in learning the ilm. The second one, the second type of ilm, صبر في أدائه وبثه وتبليغه إلى أهله. The sabr to be upon it and to spread it and to give it to those who would honor it. As we said, the ilm is not to be given to anyone, but to be given to the one that would honor the ilm, not the one that would, as a result of that, would degrade the ilm. As we said, worldly things, people do that. Imagine, I mentioned this example this morning, you're learning something that requires license or something worldly matter, engineering, medicine, something like this. And you would sit on the corner of the streets teaching people medicine or teaching people civil engineering or something like this, or dentistry, for example, teaching people how to do it. People would learn, right? And they would be able to practice. What do you do? They would arrest you as a result of this, because you are, if the word humiliating this ilm, you're abusing this ilm. The ilm of the deen is the same thing or even more important. And that's different than, again, as we said, admonishing and reminding people. It's different than teaching the obligatory knowledge. That's mandatory for everyone. But to take the path of ilm, this is something that you have to attain these levels and to be patient and so on, and not to basically give it to those who do not deserve it and those who would not be having these qualities. So this is, and to sit to the people to teach them, that requires sabr. To have someone to understand what you're saying, that requires sabr. To be patient with their mistakes requires sabr. So both everybody has sabr. Not that a person reached the level that now he's a person of knowledge or he's teaching, that means he doesn't have to have sabr because he passed that stage. No, the sabr is, the rest of one's life has to be upon sabr. Sabr in learning and sabr in teaching and spreading the ilm. So the issue of sabr and to be patient till a person is, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So we said the last one, since we want to finish the middle of it. So number 10, which is, we talked about it also in the previous book, So this is briefly a reminder, ملازمة آداب العلم, to be upon the manners of knowledge. And some of the quotes that we didn't mention before, but again, the importance of the adab. أدب المرء, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, عنوان سعادتي وفلاحي. The way to be successful and to be happy, you have to have adab in every matter. وقلة أدبه عنوان شقاوته وبواره. And the lack of manners is basically the sign of a person being perished, and he's going to be ruined. فما استجلب خير الدنيا والآخرة بمثل الأدب. There's nothing better than an adab and manners that would bring the goodness of this life and in the hereafter. ولا استجلب حرمانهما بمثل قلة الأدب. And there's nothing that would take the goodness away from you more than the lack of al-adab or the manners. So the one that would be fit to seek the knowledge is the one that has the manners in his own self, as we talked about the many points. We have to observe these things. These are not words of advice just in general. We have to be upon these physically and in our hearts. The adab with one's dars is if a person is in the dars of learning. The adab, the manners with one's teacher and his friends, those who are learning with him, and all of these different subjects that we learned, we have to be upon it and to apply it, not just to know it and to take the exam, but we have to practice it. And if we forget, we need to remind one another so that it's always developed in us. And with the adab, you will understand the ilm. So it's not to benefit anyone. It's not for the person that is teaching. It's not for the person that is next to you. It's for you to understand the ilm and to exalt the deen. It's because of the deen of Allah. So that's why when the ulama, for example, would discipline even their students, and when they see someone is not sitting properly, not doing something in the right way, it's not for the teacher. It's not like the worldly things, you're disrespecting your teacher. No, who cares about the teacher? Doesn't care if he's a sincere one. He doesn't care about himself. He shouldn't care about his own pride and his own thing like this, but rather it's because of the deen. This is ibadah. This is a matter of ibadah. So the respect of the teacher is part of ta'zim of the deen, because of the ilm, because of the deen, not because of the individuals. And when a person is upon this, is the fahm or the understanding of the ilm, he would attain it. Otherwise, when someone doesn't have it, he would not understand matters of deen. And he mentioned here, a man asked Al-Bukhari أن يقرأ عليه, that he would learn from him and read from him. فأذن له البخاري permitted for him to read for him something, to teach him. فجلس الرجل متربعا. So the man sat, crossed his legs in the normal way that we sit. فامتنع من إقرائه. So he refused to let him read or to benefit him, and he said, أنت أحوج إلى الأدب منك إلى العلم الذي جئت تطلبه. You know, when he said in an inappropriate way, he said, you are in need of adab before the ilm that you came to seek. And again, to pay attention. Someone just walked in, might think, is that considered bad man? Is that the way of the Prophet ﷺ? We're not talking about someone coming asking a question to act upon it, a fatwa or something. The Prophet ﷺ would, a Bedouin comes in and have su' adab and bad manners, and he would answer him. Talking about someone who wants to learn the deen, to be among the people of knowledge. That's a different aspect here that needs to be pay attention to. And that's why as Salaf, again, they would be more concerned of teaching the adab first, the same way they would teach the ilm. So because without the adab, there is no ilm. As the statement of Ibn Sirin that we maybe mentioned it maybe 4 or 5 times so far, كانوا يتعلمون الهدي كما يتعلمون العلم. They used to learn al-hadi, the appearance, the way the person conducts himself, the way he sits, the way he walks, and things like this, the same way they would learn the ilm. And some of them, they would make it even as a priority before the ilm, as we heard. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, and the majlis of Imam Malik used to have so much hayba. Hayba is what is respect and fear, and not a good fear. Like nobody would dare to anything except to be upon this seriousness of the knowledge. So he said to a young man from Quraysh, يَبْنَ أَخِي تعلم الأدب قبل أن تتعلم العلم. Learn adab before you would learn the ilm. And the famous quote by مخلد ibn al-Husayn ونسات ibn al-Mubarak, نحن إلى كثير من الأدب أحوج منا إلى كثير من العلم. We are in need of lots of adab, more than few amount of ilm. So that's why they used to advise one another, and they used to make sure that they are upon it. And we mentioned that quote from Imam Malik also, that his mother would put the imama on him, and she would say to him, اذهب إلى ربيعة, the Sheikh of Imam Malik, فقيه أهل المدينة في زمانه, فتعلم من أدبه قبل علمه. See the fiqh, see the ilm of the mother of Imam Malik. So she would advise her son, go to Rabi'a and learn from his adab. Learn of how he conducts himself. When he gets angry, how does he act? When he's pleased, how does he act? Things like this. This is the adab. Learn from his adab before you learn from his ilm. And then at the end he says, many of the students nowadays, they are not attaining the ilm because of the lack of the adab. And the adab, you cannot learn this from a distance, really. Right? Unless a person, this is the only way, then he has to put more effort. The adab comes with living and seeing the ulama and being in the circles of the ilm and so on. So he says, فَتَرَى أَحَدَهُمْ مُتَّكِئًا بِحَضْرَةِ شَيْخِ. Would find some of them reclining in front of his sheikh, for example, or extend his legs in front of the sheikh, or raising his voice. And he would answer his phone even in front of his sheikh and things like this. And the same adab manners to be observed with one's parents, for example. Right? It's these types of, this is how the believers are upon. So if there's lack of adab and manners like this, for those who seek the path of knowledge, there's no goodness in such a thing. And he says, أشرف الليث ابن سعد على أصحاب الحديث. Layth ibn Sa'd, he went to people studying the hadith. فرأى منهم شيئا كأنه كره. He saw something that he disliked. So he said, ما هذا? What is this? أنتم إلى يسير من الأدب أحوج منكم إلى كثير من العلم. He disciplined them. You need some adab, small amount of adab better for you than lots of ilm. So then he, at the end, he says, فماذا يقول الليث لو رأى حال كثير من طلاب العلم في هذا العصر? What would the Layth say if he sees the hal or the status of many of the students of knowledge nowadays? So this is again a reminder after a reminder that we observe these adab and these manners, and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that the ilm is attained. Don't think of what's the relationship between both. Ilm, I'll understand what is being said and memorize it. I'll get an A in the exam, I learned. This isn't anything else except the ilm of the deen. The ilm of the deen, istifa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whoever befits to be among the people of ilm, not the people of information. So if it's an istifa from Allah, if it's something that is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Rabbukum a'lamu bikum, Allah knows best. So therefore, the way to attain this is not the normal way that a person would attain any types of knowledge. It has to be with observing these meanings, and the ikhlas, and the sincerity, and the ibadah, and the devotion, and the sidq, and ta'zim al-ilm, exalting it, and the adab to be observed, that we heard many aspects of it, and to be patient with all of that. Otherwise a person would be deprived from the ilm the more that he deprive himself from these manners. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit of what we heard. We have 10 more left, inshallah. Hopefully by tomorrow we can get them finished, inshallah.